It's about vaccination policy and the UK government, the untold truth. And what we do, what we managed to do, we had government papers that are freedom of information. They're not really very easy to get hold of. When you do get hold of them, most of them are redacted. We've managed to get the ones that are unredacted. So we know what the actual government is saying in the vaccination meetings. And it is very interesting because what they're saying is they're hiding, it's all in the papers, we've exposed all the papers, they're all on my website, which is in the book, it's quite explanatory. What we're saying is that if we look into the papers, they're actually doing a lot of corruption. And I mean, we all know here that the government's corrupt. I don't need to tell you that, you know that. But what they're actually doing is they're safeguarding the vaccination policies over the health and safety of our children. And what we've managed to do is we've got papers from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s and 2000s. And we've got the JCVI. Now the JCVI minutes of their meetings, they are the Joint Committee of Vaccination and Immunisation. They advise the government on what vaccinations are safe and what are not safe. They're all safe. They say they're safe, but they're not safe. That is the problem. And they're actually, when one person called Rosemary Fox actually challenged the government and challenged what they were saying, what they did was, in the secret meetings, I've got the letters, and I've actually published the letters as well, but in these meetings they were saying, how can we hide this? How can we hide this from the public? What do we admit and what don't we admit? Now if that's not a telling statement, what is? We've also got Ministry of Defence papers, and it's very interesting that when they brought the MMR into the country, it was a banned MMR, it was banned in Canada and Japan. So what the JCVI did was they changed the name of the vaccine to bring the vaccination in, called it something else, and it was a new safe vaccine. It wasn't safe, it caused absolute chaos. There was thousands and thousands of injuries, which they knew were going to happen. They know, and they knew what was going on and what was happening. And the interesting thing is that to cover themselves and to cover their backs, they brought in Sir Roy Meadow. Sir Roy Meadow is the one that made up the MSVP, which is Munchausen syndrome by proxy, which is basically a child abuse accusation that they make to parents and carers when they bring their children that are ill and sick and disabled into hospitals, and they ask for medical help. If they should state that they've had a vaccination, then they seem to be getting accused, and they've been accused, of Munchausen syndrome by proxy. Now he made up this syndrome, it's not a real syndrome, he made it up in 1977. I won't go into the corrupt actual research he did, but let's just say that children died at the hands of this man, and I can prove it. It's all there, it's on the internet, it's easy to prove. He actually, to prove that a mother had given this child salt to make the child ill, he actually fed the child, and it's his words in the paper, it's called The Hinterlands of Child Abuse. They fed the child 20 grams of salt. The child died. Then they accused the mother. This man was brought into those vaccination meetings, and he actually sat on them from the years that the MMR, the first MMR that came in, that was discontinued in 1992, came in 1988, discontinued in 1992 because of the damage it had done. And they had him sitting on the meetings advising about cot death after vaccines and everything else, and how they were going to hide it all. And they brought him in 87, and he went out at 1991, just before they took it out. Now, he's never been in before, he's never been in after. And after that man was in there, the Munchausen syndrome by proxy label shot up out of all proportions. And this is where, at the time when Andrew Wakefield came in. So what we've actually published in this book, vaccination policy in the UK government, it will be banned. So if you didn't get a copy, get it soon. It will be banned because of what we've exposed. I have actually got in here, in this actual book, a Ministry of Defence paper, because when they brought the MMR in, they didn't only give it to our babies, they gave it to the soldiers that were going to the Gulf War. I've actually got a paper saying what vaccinations
They don't really need it. They didn't really need it.
No, of course they didn't. They actually, all the vaccinations, they were given loads and loads. And I've got a list of the vaccinations they were given. And I've got a Ministry of Defence paper in here stating they were going to stop the animal testing because they were redundant and test it on the soldiers instead. Now we've got a whole sort of epidemic of Gulf War syndrome. And we both of us, she's a Canadian immunologist and myself, we exposed it and we talk about exactly what was going on and what was said in those meetings. So if you want to know what they're saying and how unsafe the vaccinations are, I suggest you buy our book. Okay, that's enough.